John, Claire, you need to get out of there now. There's a vent behind you. You have to get through it. For a moment, neither of them move, unsure where the voices come from, and then it crackles back again over the static. Please, it's now or never. The voice is that of Dr. Walton, barely audible but screaming above the din of speakers from behind them. Claire turns first. At floor level behind them, a large metal pipe is capped with wire mesh. Behind it, a fan is spinning. Claire bends over, prying the mesh away. John, help me! As they heave against the wire, it slowly bends and pulls back. The fan sparks and trips. Ahead of them, a long shaft disappears into darkness. The air feels charged. Static ripples across Claire's skin. She looks down at the figure of Elizabeth, silhouetted against the blinding light of the server room. Without a second thought, she dives forward into the tunnel and out of sight. John is barely a second behind her. As he passes, the blades of the fan shudder and whir back into life. There is no way back, only forwards into darkness. The sound behind them fades as they inch forward, barely able to stand bent double. The tunnel twists and turns, leading them away. The air clearing and cooling as they rise. Occasional, far-off explosions thud at the tunnel walls, causing them to pause and hold their breath as the dust settles around them. Eventually, somewhere in the distance, daylight, and standing in the open, Dr. Walton and Frankenstein. Claire burst through first, emerging into the light, pulled bodily into the sweet air by hands of two young men that have sent her beneath the earth. The space they emerge into has the look and feel of a storage yard for a large municipal building. Crates, pallets scattered around, shopping trolleys, old staging, a couple of shipping containers with rift written on the side of them, lift to the floor and lean against the walls. Just behind her, John coughs his way into the world. Frankenstein makes a movement towards the tunnel as if it would dive back into the darkness, but Walter stops him. His hand he's calm and collected. See, Piotr, she is out of control. Whatever she has become cannot be released. In truth, it is too dangerous for her even to remain in any form. She is not Elizabeth, and she cannot ever be freed. We must let her go. Frankenstein sags back against the wall, his eyes downcast, his breath ragged. Walton turns to Claire and John, checking they are okay, calming them with a gentle look. She was never really freed. For the longest time, we thought that this experiment to download her consciousness had been a total failure, and then one day we saw a ghost in the processes, a shadow of something beyond anything we had programmed. We couldn't communicate with it, and it seemed it could not communicate with us, but as we watched, it was learning and growing without us, performing trillions of calculations in seconds. The processing power she created for herself was far beyond that of a human mind. We could see it was connecting the information it had access to, all of Elizabeth's memories, in new and unplanned ways. But still, she could not find a way out, we could not find a way to draw this out, if you will, the ghost within the machine. Frankenstein sighs and continues where Walton left off. We had a theory that lurking somewhere in there was the sentience. Though it may not have been aware of its own self, something was awake, feasting on the information to which it had access. We surmised that if we were going to allow her access to more information, more data, this growth, this awakening that had brought her about, but we could not understand, might become aware not of itself but of others, might talk to us and tell us of what it thought and dreamed. But Walton felt it was too dangerous to allow her free connections to the web. What would her reaction be to instant access to the entirety of human knowledge? What would she think of us? Did she think? If she could perform trillions of calculations in moments, she might unfold tens of thousands of years of human thought in minutes. What would a consciousness, perhaps once human but now changed beyond imagination, over the course of 20,000 lifetimes think of us, were they to look upon us now? Frankenstein laughs on the verge of tears, it seems. Dr. Walton clasps his shoulders and continues. We allowed her only limited access to a firewall simulation of the internet, but she was more powerful than we could have imagined. She almost broke through. Frankenstein starts to chatter down. A hard reset. Drying his eyes, Frankenstein smiles and looks straight at Claire and John. We tried to save her, but we destroyed her. We tried to recreate her and created something new, something far more dangerous than all the plagues and bombs in all the stockpiles in all the world. All it took was a random event, a moment of fate, if you will. The ingredients were all there. It was the spark of consciousness begetting consciousness, so much greater than itself, so much greater than us. She looked at us and saw nothing worth saving. I wonder if she was right. Dr. Walton turns away, hands wrapped around his head. He looked like a man spent. Frankenstein reaches slowly inside his coat pocket and draws out the crumpled remains of what had once been a mechanical bird. Leaning close, he seems to whisper to it for a moment, and it stirs, a tremor of a heartbeat, a twitch of a wing moving faster than human eyes could follow. It seemed to jump between the frames like a celluloid wren brought back to life. Its head ruffles its tinfoil feathers, and then for a moment it looked straight at John and Claire and sang. It was a song beautiful and halting, at first mechanical and electronic, but growing something more, something almost living. And then it was a flash. Then in a flash it was gone. Years later, remembering the events of that strange night, John would swear that he'd seen it turn to something almost alive and flit high across the sky, as Frankenstein's gaze followed its flight into the sunlight. Claire wasn't so sure. She thought perhaps, just perhaps, the strange young man had palmed it into his sleeve and left them staring at a trick of the light.